Okay, since the last video, I've made some significant changes to our Rains class scout frigate. And one of the main things I've done is I've made it an ELINT ECM scouting or electronic support frigate. And the job that it has in my fleet is to detect the enemy at maximum range without being detected itself. And it has a few tools that let it do that. I have a little bit of video after my explanation showing this in action. But now what I'm mounting on this ship is an ES-22 Pinard electronic support module. This module, importantly, allows the ship to detect radar signatures as ELINT signals. This means that when an enemy ship is sweeping its radar to try and find a target, the signal waves that come out from it, I don't look for a technical explanation for me, I don't know the full science behind it, go further than they can get a return from. And this module can detect those waves and will paint back a line showing where it came from. If you have two of these separated, you can then triangulate the enemy's position and work out where they are based on their radar emissions without them actually detecting you on their radar. And this is huge information. This can do a lot of things. You can actually launch missile barrages at that area from across the map and hit the enemy before they know where you are. And the only way to stop this module from detecting you is to turn the radar off on your ships. But if you do that, then you don't know where they are. And it becomes this game of when you turn your systems on, when you turn them off. So the Pinard electronic support module is hugely important. Now, some other changes that I've made to the ship. I've added a hang-up jammer to one of them in place of the spotlight sensor module. The hang-up jammer is a comms jammer. So unlike the blanket jammer that you see most people using, which is a radar jammer, the hang-up jammer blocks the enemy from receiving communications. From sending communications. It means that if the enemy has a scout ship that is radioing back information as to where your ships are, you can comms jam it and it will stop sending that information. That will stop snipers attacking you from out of line of sight if you jam the closer ship. So usually if people are using like a brawler ship to come up close and fight you and it's transmitting back radar data of where you are, you can comms jam it to stop that information coming to you. You can also use this comms jammer on incoming radio missiles. If they're the ones that are guided by a ship, they'll lose their track, they won't know where you are anymore, and the missiles may miss. So this ship has a hang-up jammer. The other one does have, the Pride of Kiva, I have two of these ships, does have a radar jammer, though I don't use it too often. The problem with the jammers is they kind of reveal you when you use them a little bit. Both of the ships are carrying Gale missiles because I use another ship to give me a target lock, and you can fire the Gales from very, very far away, and they are very cheap compared to the other missiles. So I can mount a full load of these and I'm still under points for my fleet. I have also put a VLS-1 launcher on all of my ships. The VLS-1 can only fire size 1 missiles. There are only two size 1 missiles, the Chaff decoys and the riposte guided missiles. The ripostes are like sprints from High Fleet. They will intercept incoming missiles and destroy them. They are quite expensive and you can only carry so many. 2 points per missile is a lot. So I don't tend to use these, but the Chaff missiles are fantastic. Without exaggerating, and it's not something I like to do in games, but I've actually had enemies rage quit at games against me because I've managed to disrupt entire massive torpedo barrages with well-timed manual Chaff launches. Here's a huge tip for you. The shortcut key to manually launch Chaff is Shift Z. If you press that button, the selected ship will instantly launch a Chaff missile. The AI will launch Chaff missiles automatically, but it isn't great at it. I find it launches them too late. Don't hammer the button. You can only carry a max of 23 of these in a fully loaded launcher. And you're probably not going to have enough points for all of that. But just if you time your Chaff launches very, very well, you can pretty much disrupt most of a missile wave with your Seaways taking care of the rest of it. So all of my ships carry Chaff now. These ones more, the sort of support frigates more to later on in the game maybe go and pair up with one of my combat ships and protect it with extra Chaff, or just in case they're having missiles launched at them, they have some way of defending themselves. Other things that I've done is I've added a small DC locker to these ships. Not having any damage control at all is a mistake because you can do simple things like accidentally overheat your engines or do a burn through on one of your radar if you're doing an overburn, or overusing a module by turning out the burnout lookout. So you can use a small DC module just to keep the ship alive. And if it does take some hit, then this keeps you going, whereas a fire could destroy the whole ship because you've got no one on the ship to put it out. So always put a small DC locker at least in your ships. I've had to add some berthing as well. That's a free module just to make sure I've got enough crew. Everything else is the same down here. We have the same reactor, the whiplash drive, the spyglass radar, and a small reactor booster. A couple of people have been asking me why I'm using small reactor boosters instead of, it's not, doesn't fit into that slot. I think it would fit up here. Can't find it now, the plant control center. The plant control center gives you 20% more power plant efficiency, but it costs 25 points, whereas small reactor boosters cost 10 points. So unless you're mounting 3 small reactor boosters, the power plant annex is actually more expensive than 2 small reactor boosters, which is why I'm using that. Just having a quick look at the Pride of Kiva. The Pride of Kiva, slightly different, mainly has a blanket jammer rather than the hang-up jammer. The only thing that is different is I needed a second small reactor booster in order to get enough power to run that. And that is the 2 ships. This one costs 391 points. This one costs 376 points. If I want to get rid of the missile launchers, I can kind of get it close to 300, but I do want them to have a little bit of an offensive capability, and they can attack from out of line of sight. I will do a separate video where I talk about the other ships I'm using in my fleet, because I don't want this to be too long. And I've got some really good tips for those, especially on how to really effectively use the frag Sea-Wiz weapon, because it's actually amazing, but a lot of people are missing that it needs a separate tracking system to work properly. But hopefully this is useful. You can already see that I have grown based on my original video on how to do a spotting ship, but I think spotting ships are massively important. So I'm hoping that you're finding this as useful as I am. Stick around and I'll show you how to use ELINT to detect your enemies at the end of this video. It's a very useful skill, and I think as people master it, the battlefield is going to change a lot in this game. What I'm seeing at the moment is a lot of people are just massing torpedoes. I'm coming up against a lot of people who just have hundreds and hundreds of, well, not hundreds, but as many torpedoes as they can stuff into a ship. And basically it's an all or nothing alpha strike. If they can take you out with that torpedo barrage, they kind of think they've won the game. I have ships that are very defensive against missiles, and at the moment it's winning me out, and then I'm winning a war of attrition because I have more guns to bear than them. But we'll see how that goes as the meta changes. The meta is very interesting at the moment. It's changing a lot. I also kind of try to build for 1v1s. No one else really wants to play 1v1s with me. They all want to do 2v2s and 4v4s, which is fine, but I'd like to get some 1v1s going as well. But anyway, I hope this was useful. Like I say, stick around to see how ELINT works, and I'll catch you in my next video. So here's what I mean about using ELINT to detect your enemies. I have the Admiral Dowd and the Pride of Kiva ahead of my fleet with their radars turned off. These purple lines, and here we've got them coming from the Admiral Dowd as well, are my electronic warfare modules receiving radar emissions. I don't really know the full technology behind it, but essentially I know exactly where the enemy fleet is by cross-referencing these 2 lines. If I was to turn my radar on right now, I would detect the enemy right here. But using this information, I can keep track of where the enemy are by their radar pings, or their radar sweeps, I should say, and maneuver without them knowing how close I am to them. And this is an invaluable tool to actually locate your enemy and the electronic warfare and the intelligence warfare that this game has that a lot of people maybe aren't really being aware of. If I wanted to right now, I could turn my radar on and I can pick up the enemy exactly where I thought they were. And that increases my radar signature. They may have detected me now. In fact, they are heading in this direction by the looks of it. But when I had that off, there's a very good chance they did not know where I was. It's not guaranteed. They can still detect my ship if they've got a very sensitive radar or I get too close. And it does depend on what modules I have equipped. I can do things, for instance, like changing my communications to receive instead of transmit. The problem with that is, of course, I can't see the ECM, the ELINT signals unless I have the ship selected. But that now makes their radar signature very, very low, and that is an even better way of scouting out and being avoiding being caught. So that's EWAR kind of intel in practice. One of the most important things I needed to do to get this to work was make sure that our electronic warfare modules are actually facing the enemy. If you look at the build of this ship, the EWAR module is on top, so I had to rotate the Admiral Dowd upside down in order for it to detect them. In addition to that, you can only see the ELINT signals when you are in the tactical view. You can't see them when you're in the battlefield view. So that's ELINT in practice, and hopefully that is useful. I can go into more detail in it if you want to. I'll try and include some games where I'm using this strategy to try and find my opponents. But yeah, that's what it looks like and how to use it in-game.